I Got This podcast is a fitness and health and exercise podcast. So during this episode, we are going to be talking about the most fundamentally important thing that you should be doing every single time that you exercise. Otherwise, I can guarantee you're getting absolutely nothing out of the movement that you're putting in if you're not doing this one thing. Hey everybody, and welcome back to I Got This podcast with LEX and MGP. My name is Lex. I've been a personal trainer for 7 years now. Martha is my client, and she has been with me for 4 years. Over our time together, she's lost over 60 pounds, and we have learned so much together. We've learned what works, what doesn't work, and more importantly, we've had so much fun doing it. So join us each and every week as we talk about whatever the hell we want. Hey everybody, welcome back to I Got This podcast. Today, we are talking about the number one thing that you should be doing every single time that you exercise. And I wonder, Martha, can you guess what that thing is?
You got me. I'm afraid I'm going to give the wrong answer here.
One guess. No, if you didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know the topic. So you're like, oh, well, I know. Okay, if you were somebody who has never worked out before ever, or
Right.
but like not familiar with it, still on that beginning journey, still taking classes sporadically, coming to the gym sporadically, if I were to say, if you're not doing this one thing, you're getting nothing out of the workout, what would you think it would be?
Warming up or stretching.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And that's definitely grouped in on this.
Mm-hmm.
When I first had our first session with you, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it was even me. It was probably your first trainer before me. And then I took over and I brought it up again. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you heard it over and over and over again.
I'm pretty sure I heard it this morning.
Yes, you did when we trained, right? The word is braced.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing that you need to be doing before you start moving in any movement that you do, a bodyweight squat, a row, a deadlift, a plank, the most basic moves, you need to be bracing your body for exercise. Now, we're going to go through what exactly that means. Well, so we're going to kind of talk about it anatomically from the bottom of your body and then all the way up and what you need to do. And of course, this is a podcast, so you're not getting those physical cues, but maybe we'll do a little video on Instagram so you guys can see exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
So there are different movements which require different sorts of bracing. So we're going to talk more on the basic scale of functional movement in terms of strength training and body weight movements, less cardio, less running or rowing or dance or anything like that.
I don't even think about it when I'm doing cardio. Are we supposed to be bracing then?
You're in a different way,
Okay.
right? In a different way. Like when you're running, you're still, I tighten my core. When I run, my core is so sore after. It's weird.
Oh, things tighten, but
not that. Especially after having babies, things say when you're running. Sorry. But no, my core is sore after that. Okay, let's go over what it is. So the braced position is how you get your body completely aligned and ready for movement. So as human beings, when we're walking around anatomically on a daily basis, what normally happens is a lot of us lock our legs out. Okay. So what that means is your knees don't have any slight bend. They're completely straight. Okay. And what that does is when your knees are completely straight, there's no blood flow or less blood flow than normal between your ankles and your calves up to your hips. Okay. So that's very important that you're able to allow that blood flow and for many other reasons. Okay. The next thing is that we have a natural back arch. Okay. Especially women, it's called lordosis. And our low back does tend to arch most of the time because we're built for pregnancy. When you're pregnant, your hips pull back and your belly pulls forward, right? Men tend to have this too because of just the way that we're sitting at our desk all day and all these other good things. However, women tend to have it a lot more, which therefore causes a lot of the time low back pain, right? How many women have low back pain? So many.
Yeah.
So many, because we're in this unnatural arch, right? And then the final piece of the final two pieces that we commonly see is an upper back round. Obviously, we're sitting at our desks all day. We're looking at computers. Even if you don't have a job in which you're sitting at a desk, you definitely are sitting down looking at your phone most of the day, which I know I am prone to doing that. Or even if you're at a job in which you're actively not looking at your phone, whether you're working with like children or in a hospital setting as a nurse, you're leaning in towards people.
Right.
If it's a person to person, just as you are a teacher, you're
Mhm.
leaning in towards students so that you can get closer and connect with them.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, because they're sitting at a desk and I'm walking around.
exactly. So
Right.
no matter what you're doing, most of the time you can assume that people are leaning in and have this round through their upper back, which then causes your neck to kind of jut forward way more than it should. So all of this happens and it pulls our spine out of alignment. Now let's say from there you go right into a bodyweight squat. Okay, let's say you are standing how you would normally stand and you start just squatting. That doesn't sound like it would feel very good, does it?
No.
No, not to me either. So while you're listening to this podcast, you may be driving. I know a lot of our listeners currently drive and listen to our podcast, which is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, on their way to work.
On their way to work.
We're the featured on the way to work podcast.
I love that. Or wherever you are. So try pieces of this if you are on your way to work. Please do not try the first piece. Because
As we're driving.
yeah, your like gas pedal presses down into the ground. Not good. The first thing that I want us to do to get ready for exercise, you're always going to, so if you have an opportunity to stand up and do this, I want you to screw your feet into the ground, kind of like you're unscrewing drawers beneath your feet. What that does is it puts a natural bend in your knee, okay? From there, you're going to move up into alignment. There, you're going to have a natural bend in your knee when you screw your feet into the ground. If it's not already there, then give yourself a nice little bounce. Like if someone were to push you, you could bounce back almost, right?
Oh, that's a good way to think of it.
Yeah. Okay, after that, we're going to talk about tucking our pelvis. That is one of the hardest things to do.
It is, yeah.
And the difference for bracing is different for every single person. And as we know, in terms of anatomy, every single person's body is different. My femurs are longer than yours. Your arms might be longer than mine. Your torso is probably longer than mine because my torso is super, super short. You know, like little things that, and your lifestyle is different than mine. So all of these little cues are going to be different, but try it out and see how it feels. That's the most important thing. So what you want to do is actually think about arching your back right now. So arch your back. Okay. So I want you to accentuate doing it incorrectly. So you have that nice little fold in your low back. It's rounded. Okay. Now I want you to move the opposite way and tuck your pelvis under. Now there's going to be a sweet spot. So you can tuck your pelvis all the way under and you'll feel like your low back is rounding and you're going to feel like a dog that's holding in poop or about to poop, right? We don't want to feel like that. Okay. So we want to come to a middle ground where your pelvis is completely in line with your knees almost, okay, and stacked with your rib cage. Your back is not arched, your pelvis is not too far forward, it's stacked with your rib cage, okay? And you don't have to overthink about it because if you think too much, sometimes people get lost and they're like, oh my God, what do I do now? So don't get lost, just find a comfortable position. Okay, the next thing that I want you to do is tighten up your core. Not sucking in. A lot of people think suck your pelvis in like you would in high school, fit in jeans or like looks. That's not bracing for exercise. What you're gonna do is tighten your torso just enough so if somebody were to like punch you in the gut, you wouldn't get hurt, right?
Right.
So your abdomen is engaged. Okay. And then the last piece we're gonna do is slightly engage our lats. Now, one thing that I actually coached a lot of my clients out originally, an old cue, and these cues tend to change often. So if you hear these and then a year from now, you might hear me cue differently because they're outdated. And this is an outdated cue, what I'm about to say. So what people used to have you do is shrug forward, okay? Pull your shoulders up towards your earlobes, pull your shoulders back and down. Okay. You used to do that
when I started training. That's how I learned it. Yeah.
And you would shrug and pull back. And it's such an accentuated move. And what that does is it actually causes more stress on your muscles. So what I actually want you to do is just relax your shoulders. Okay. And then all I want you to do is pull your shoulders back slightly. That's it. That's all. Pull your shoulders back slightly. So that instead of feeling that round, you're just slowly opening your chest up. And you feel your back slightly engaged. Doesn't that feel very comfortable?
Yeah, it feels natural.
Feels natural.
Yeah.
Another way, if you're having trouble and you don't feel like you're getting it, is have your hands hang down by your sides. Okay. See how your palms are facing your pants naturally or like slightly behind you? All you got to do is take those palms and unscrew jars. Yes. Underneath your palms and see how your shoulders open up naturally. Yes, that's going to keep your shoulders down and back and with a nice tall chest. So your back is just slightly engaged. That's fixing your posture. And when you do that, see how your head kind of pulls back with it?
Mm-hmm.
That's natural. That's normal.
Yep. Chest is up.
Yeah. Now it feels very uncomfortable, right?
Feels a little unnatural.
It feels unnatural.
Yeah.
And the reason it feels unnatural is because, number one, we never do it. We're pulled so far a different way. Nothing's in line. So we have to practice it just like we practice everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second piece is this bracing position. Yes, I use it every single day, but I'm exercising every single day. You want to use this movement when you're standing up about to do any sort of movement, okay? Which you're generally doing. So I want you to relax, shake it all out, okay? A fun experiment that I have a lot of people do is have somebody take a picture of you standing there regularly from a side view.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go through the brace position, screw your feet into the ground, soft bend in the knee, pull your pelvis so it's in line with your rib cage, draw your abdomen just a little tighter, shoulders down, unscrewing those drawers beneath your palms, head back. And then you have somebody take a picture of you after. And you see the difference of how beautifully stacked your body is and how much more proud you feel and how much more stable you are. And when you do that, you're going to see a tremendous difference in your movement patterns. Now, there are a lot of different positions in exercise. So let's say you could be laying down on a bench doing a chest press. You can still do this move. Don't over tuck your pelvis. Just still engage everything and then get ready for that move. Squat, deadlift, everything along those lines. Of course, there are more advanced cues for each of them, but starting and practicing this position is going to get you so far more forward because your body's going to be engaged and ready for movement.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the talk. So that's bracing for exercise. Now, Martha, I think you had some questions.
I did. I was thinking about this when you were talking about it, and I'm like, well, there's some things I actually really want to know.
Yeah.
Can you over-engage, overdo it when you're trying to brace?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's practice this.
Okay.
Okay. So this is definitely like a more active podcast for us today.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, when you tell me to do something, I tend to like put an exclamation point on it.
Exactly.
And I want to make sure I'm not over-engaging with my brace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I'll naturally see is when I coach a pelvis tuck, a lot of people will over tuck.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go into a squat and their back is rounded. So that can be overdone, very much so. Another thing that can be overdone is bracing your core too much or bracing it in the wrong way. That's going to give you a hernia. So if you're bracing properly, you should feel sturdy. So let me kind of go over the core. Core is really tricky.
Okay.
So I'm going to dig into that next. So if you have a lot of load on your spine, let's say you're doing a back squat, I want you to think of a pop can.
Okay.
A pop can, when it's closed, can withstand pressure from the top and pressure from the bottom, right? So if you're pressing down on it with weight down, it's not being crushed, okay? As soon as you open that pop can and it goes, right?
Right.
That pressure can no longer be sustained anymore. So it starts to crumble. So that's kind of how a brace works. Let's say you take a big deep breath and you brace your core and you become stable before you go into that squat. You're going to hold that breath in, thinking of that barbell being your pressure down on that pop can. You do not start exhaling on that squat as you come until you're at the top,
right?
So that your spine does not crumble. The goal of this entire brace is to stabilize your spine so you don't get hurt.
Right.
That's the purpose. So you can over engage. You just need to make sure that you are locking everything in enough where it feels comfortable. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Okay.
It does.
There are other things that you can over engage. So let's say your back, you pull your shoulders down and back, just like we talked about. Pulling too far up, down, and back. It feels so uncomfortable how engaged you are because you're almost arching your back a little bit.
Yes. And that's, I think, what I used to be doing. And I'm like, this is not comfortable, but if this is what I have to do, okay. I mean, it was one of those situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a difference between feeling good about how it feels. So like when I went through the brace position with you, did it feel good?
Oh, right now? Yeah.
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 It felt pretty good, right? But if I go through the extension of the shoulders down and back, tighten your core, screw your feet, it's almost like painful.
Oh, yeah.
That's not the goal. That is not the goal. So that's a good question. Yes, it is possible to over engage.
All right. So what then? You really have to get your core involved to do this, right? So what are the signs that my core is too weak, maybe to brace properly? Or is that not even a thing?
It is a thing. Absolutely. Great question again. So number one, the biggest sign of a weak core is low back pain. If you get chronic low back pain, you might have a weak core, a weak torso, especially for women postpartum, post babies, or even years after. Sometimes you never get that core strength fully back, and that's something that we have to work on as well. So the first thing for women is learning how to engage your pelvic floor. And we all know what that means.
Yep.
Kind of sucking it up a little bit and tightening your low pelvic floor. Okay. That's the start of it. From there, kind of pulling through your low abdomen and then bracing all the way up. So think about your abdomen starting from your pelvis and then working all the way up to your rib cage. And if you think about it that way, you'll know that your core is truly, it's the center, it's the core needs to be fully engaged. If it's weak, right, you will have low back pain naturally, or other things might happen. You won't feel it in the right spots. So that's why it has to be strong. With that being said, the first way to learn to brace is basic movements. So one of my favorite movements is a dead bug. It's the most basic form. It's even before you go into a crunch, because most people don't even do a crunch properly. They fling themselves up through their upper back.
Right.
But if you can learn to drive your core down into a mat and lock your shoulders down and back and create tension, then you'll be in the right spot. The more you start to feel it, the better. You need to learn how to do the body weight exercises first, right? Men they have a different pelvic floor to learn to control, right? So that's like holding in your pee. Think about that. When you're holding in your pee, trying not to let it go, that's when your pelvic floor is engaged. Starting at the basics is going to allow you to know if your weak core is weak, or feeling it in the wrong places. That's how you'll know. But always move back to the basics. Even I will warm up with the most basic moves just to make sure as I head into my workout, my core is fully engaged, my glutes are engaged, everything's turned on, as opposed to, having been sitting in the car all day, or if it's really cold out in Michigan, my body is cold, so nothing's engaged. I'm just trying to huddle up and stay warm, so nothing's even turned on. So the best way to go about it is by beginning by activating your core before you even start your workout.
Okay, silly question. Maybe not. Yeah. How do we activate our core?
Great question. It's not silly. It's the basic moves that I kind of just talked about. So little things like just a dead bug, pressing your low back into the mat or the ground, driving in, focusing on engaging, tiny little rotation moves so that you're focusing on turning your core on. You know what? I'll create a little list and post that on our Instagram so people can see.
Because I'm guessing people don't even know what a dead bug is unless they work out all the time. Yeah.
I'm saying these words and they're like, they don't, like, what does this even mean? So instead of me explaining these exercises, I'll create a little list and I'll put up a video of like 3 ways to turn your core on before you start exercising.
Perfect.
And you can use, again, if your core is weak, you'll even know, like if they're hard for you, it's really difficult for you to do, then you probably need to use them as your exercise itself. You can do them every single day at home. They're very basic moves.
And I feel like that you can strengthen your core pretty quickly.
Yeah. If you do it consistently.
That's what I mean. Yeah. More than even some of the other muscle groups.
Yes. Yeah. Your body wants a strong core, right? It will help you move better. So it builds easily.
Because I remember in the beginning of us training, I didn't think I'd ever have any lower core strength, like lower back, lower abs.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
2 C-section mama that I am. Now it doesn't seem as hard by any means.
It's a hard one for moms, for sure, without a doubt, post-pregnancy, postpartum, post-C-sections. I won't say it's easy for everyone.
No, I'm not saying it was easy. It's taken time. I mean, we're talking 4 years to actually, I just am really actually kind of recently noticing that some of these exercises are getting easier.
Exactly.
But we're talking 4 years.
Exactly.
So not 4 days, 4 weeks. That's some time.
It does want to be strong. The more you work at it, the more you practice, the better you'll get. And there are even doctors or physical therapists that work solely on pelvic floor engagement, which is a whole nother thing, but not what we're talking about today.
Right.
But yes, your core is the most important thing. If you don't have core strength, then you have nothing.
Yeah.
You have nothing.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions that you can think of?
So should you walk around braced though, 24/7?
You can try your damnedest.
Obviously not when you're sleeping, but
You're gonna forget. But yes, the more you practice it, the easier it's gonna get and the more natural it's gonna feel, right? 7 years ago, I didn't think twice about rolling my shoulders down and back, my head bobbing, or where my head was, or where my hips were. I didn't think twice. But now the more I practice it, and when I'm standing up on the floor coaching you, I think shoulders down and back. Yes, when you're in a movement or you're walking around, think about it. It's gonna help it become more natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know.
You're going to forget it. And that's fine, but every time it comes to your mind, you're like, oh, yes, shoulders down, back. It's going to be better.
Okay.
Good question. So the most important thing that you need to do before you begin exercising is brace your body. You'll hear one cue in Pilates and yoga that you will very rarely hear in strength training, and that's pull your belly button in or your navel in.
You're right.
Really old cue, but you'll hear that more in Pilates and yoga, or even possibly dance, because that's a different style of training. So you're not often going to hear that. You're going to hear bracing your abdomen as opposed to and engage or pull your abdomen in, or as opposed to kind of sucking in your low belly button. Sometimes I'll cue that on certain moves like a leg lift or this or that, but I'm very rarely going to say that. Just because you don't hear certain cues from different coaches or even different styles of training doesn't mean they're incorrect. They may be outdated in that style of training, or they may be incorrect in that style of training. It doesn't mean that it's the same across the board. Right?
Okay.
Different exercise has different cues and different techniques that you need to move in. So just keep that in mind. But we'll talk more about bracing as we talk about exercise, of course, but go ahead and head over to our Instagram page and I'll kind of go over some core activation and more about bracing. I'll post some videos on that, but this is something that I would highly recommend everybody practice. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Any topics or comments on that, Martha?
I do actually have one last question.
Yes.
You see all the, especially like the gym bros wearing the belts when they're lifting.
Yeah.
And I know that has to do with bracing. And I know like I don't wear one, even though we're lifting heavy. So what is the advantage or disadvantage to wearing a belt? So
I actually do wear one because I get pretty bad. I tend to arch my back. It's form. My form is sometimes slacking due to tightness, right? So number one, if you don't have low back pain, okay,
right,
and you have good form and you can put up heavy weight continuously without that pain, you don't need one.
Okay.
Which you're in that.
Yeah. I'm fortunate. I don't have back pain typically.
Right? So then the next piece is those belts can be helpful for certain people. I definitely find them. It's basically reinforcement around your spine. So what it does is it allows me to brace against the pad. It doesn't mean I'm not bracing. It allows me to brace my low back against that pad and tighten up a little stronger. So yes, I can put up more weight. However, it's going to protect my spine, especially as somebody who has low back pain. Now, those heavy, big gym bros that have them at the gym, they're sometimes putting up even more weight, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's allowing you to lift with more reinforcement, which is super awesome. It doesn't take away the fact that you still need proper form.
Okay. Got it. Good. I always wonder when I see them, like, do I need one of those? Looks cool. I don't know. It does look cool.
It's a shot, right? If you're so advanced, you're years in, and you're feeling like you could try something a little different, try it out. But it's not something that it's just it's a tool, right? It's not a crutch.
Yeah. Right? And I would hate to use it, relying on it to keep the brace for sure.
Never. And you should never have to go, sometimes people only pop it on when they're trying to hit a PR or they're getting higher up in weights.
Gotcha. So, all right. I was just curious. Thanks.
So guys, thank you for listening to this episode on bracing. It is so important that you start your movement with bracing your body. I'm going to post some slides on our Instagram, kind of going over core activation and what bracing looks like before you exercise. More importantly, if you have any questions, please feel free to DM us. It's making sure that you exercise safely and effectively. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, and
I got this. Hey guys, thanks for listening this week. Please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. For more I Got This content, please make sure to follow, like, and share on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or you can always go to our website, igotThisPod.com, for more info. As always, thanks for listening. See you next Monday.